Hi everyone, and welcome to Follow Your Heart here on the Natural Parent Magazine. I'm Ann Cullen and I'm answering your questions today. And I need to start out today by telling you this is the last time that this will be not done live. So as of next week, the 18th of October here in New Zealand, I'm going to be going live on the Natural Parent Magazine Instagram, answering your questions in real time. So of course you can still DM me or email me with your questions anytime, either at the Natural Parent Magazine or on my own page. But you can also now join me live. So if you are up, if you're free, that will be 11 o'clock on Fridays, New Zealand time. So if you're not in New Zealand, check out what time that will be in your area. That should meet most of you, perhaps not Europe, but hey, but for today, I am going to answer some questions. I've got 3 that I'm going to cover briefly today. And the first one is about a 2-month-old sucking on her hands, and mom is wondering, if this is normal, is that okay? And I would say most likely yes. That's a great thing. Your child is starting to explore, starting to have a little bit more control over her body movements, which is exciting. So it can be a sign that baby is hungry. So you do want to think about or pay attention to how often you're feeding baby, and if you feel like you're putting off feeds, maybe you're watching the clock and thinking that no, baby doesn't need to feed because they just fed X number of minutes or hours ago. So just paying attention to what's your baby's behavior like when she or he is sucking on their hands. Is it just look like exploring and playing, or is it a sign of hunger? And usually the best way to figure that out, if you're a bit concerned or confused, is just to try feeding your baby and see what happens. But normally not a concern, just part of development, which is really exciting. So the next one is, these are all kind of breastfeeding questions today, the ones I'm answering. The other one is about a 4-month-old who's a fussy and unsettled breastfeeder. At 7 weeks old, she had a tongue tie snipped. Mum has a good milk supply, but she's having to walk and sway and really not able to just sit and relax for a feed. So she's wondering what tips I might have that can keep baby calm during a breastfeed. Obviously, it gets a bit tricky when you're talking 4 months in of having to walk and sway and do all of these things. So I don't know more information about this situation. So I'm assuming if there was a tongue tie snipped at 7 weeks, that there was some problems early on. I don't know if you did stretches, which, by the way, I never ever advise for stretches or aftercare that involves you getting into baby's mouth. So if stuff like that was being done, baby could have some adverse reactions, certainly from either the 7 weeks leading up to the procedure and the stress that was involved there, just the procedure itself, and certainly if you were doing stretches and stuff, it's not surprising at all to me that baby is unsettled. So like I say, in this situation, I don't know. But yeah, so if your baby is struggling and they're 4 months old, this is also a time, I don't know how long it's been happening, but if you have a 4-month-old that's really struggling, and I did have a client just a couple of weeks ago with this exact same problem, and she finds that going off where it's darker or quieter helps her baby. And of course, that's not so helpful when you're trying to get out and get your shopping done or see your friends and you want to be talking and getting on with things. So I know it's frustrating. So I just want to start off by saying I feel your pain. I understand that this is a frustration. And really the best I can give you is to keep experimenting and helping her to get what she needs. At 4 months, it's really possible that sometimes she doesn't want a feed, even though she's sort of indicating it. So if I'm going to help much better, this is one where a private conversation between the two of us would be a lot more helpful, just for me to check if I think there's anything going on there that can be helped. So, but other mums, chime in. What advice do you have for this mum? What have you found that works if you've got an unsettled baby, especially when you're talking months into your breastfeeding journey and it's getting a bit exhausting and you just want things to calm down? So really, I would say in this situation, talk to somebody and just maybe get some more one-to-one ideas. I'm happy to chat, so send me a message if you want to set up a time to talk privately, okay? My last one is about weaning, about stopping breastfeeding. We're talking about an 18-month-old, so this can be a popular time for parents, for mothers to start thinking it's time for the breastfeeding relationship to end. I don't know your situation, but can I just preface, and this is not necessarily just for this follower, but when you are thinking about weaning, what I ask mums always to do first is really look at your reasoning for wanting to change your child's behavior, because that's what breastfeeding is. It's a behavior. When you're looking at 18 months old, of course your child can get their liquids and foods from other sources, their calories. It doesn't have to be from breastfeeding, but we know there are heaps and heaps of benefits to continuing on your breastfeeding journey. So, and hey, check out a post on my page today on iamcullen.com. We are actually having that conversation. So go over and look at that conversation happening about how long you've been feeding your baby for. So yeah, so think about it carefully when you're making that decision. And then what I suggest is thinking about a time of day or a type of feed that you think would be the easiest to drop. And just drop one time of day or type of feed at a time. So what I mean by that is if your child is what we call a comfort feeder, so they're a child that if they get hurt or they just kind of really could probably just have a cuddle, but they choose a breastfeed, that's a comfort feeder. Or, when they're just kind of laying around the house, having cuddles with you, reading a book, and then they decide they want to breastfeed. That's more your comfort feeder. So you could start to say no to those feeds first, or it could be the overnight feeds. That might seem like the easiest to do the first thing in the morning. So if you give up the first breastfeed of the morning, that means you have to be ready to get out of bed and distract your child with breakfast or toys or going outside straight away. So think about, if I am going to drop this particular feed, what am I going to do instead? So you can offer, say if you're going to stop offering breastfeeds when your child gets hurt or needs comfort that way, you can do what I did, which was to say, Mommy will give you a cuddle. No nums, just a cuddle. And that's what we did. And so I didn't deny him closeness with Mum. It was just not a breastfeed. So that's how we went about that. To drop them for sleep times, you might need to push baby in a pram, or toddler in a pram or a stroller. You might need to go for a car ride. Like I say, if you're giving up that first morning feed, it might mean you got to get out of bed. A lot of times, toddlers and mums that are spending quite a bit of time at home together, not super active, mums find that then toddlers are asking for more feeds. So sometimes it means just getting out and getting a bit busier, spending more time out in public. Now, that might not be your toddler. Your toddler might breastfeed just as much if you are off at the playground or off at a play date or a parenting group or whatever. Your child might feed just as much or more in those situations. But if they feed less when they're out and about, then that might be something that you want to consider. And the last thing here is for those of you that have another parent living with you. You can have the other parent take over some of those things like nighttime wakes or getting them off to bed. Remember, we're always being gentle. We're always following our child's lead. But if you truly are done breastfeeding or you want to gently start weaning from those feeds, there are things you can do that are gentle and respectful. So hopefully that helps. I will see you next week live. So join me 11 o'clock New Zealand time next Friday. I really look forward to properly getting to interact with you and answer your questions in real time. So that's going to be really fun. I will see you there. And from now on, stories are only going to be on Mondays. So I will be recording videos for you just on a Monday and New Zealand time. And then we've got on Wednesday Annalise, who's going to be talking health and some other topics like that. So still bringing you lots of interesting and interactive information here on the Natural Parent Magazine. So bye everybody. See you next week.